Lamar Jackson has been putting his passion on full display at Baltimore Ravens practice. Recently, we talk about that, the rumors surrounding the Baltimore Ravens, a potential star edge help, and a lot more coming up next year on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens. We are your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, coming to you from the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every day. Free and available for you on all podcasting platforms. That includes in video form on YouTube, where you can like the video, subscribe to the channel. Also in audio form, wherever you get your podcast, you can follow along, subscribe over there as well. We're 5 days a week for you here on Locked On Ravens, bringing the Ravens content Monday through Friday. So tell a friend, tell a family member, and we really appreciate all the support we get here on this show. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We are back. We're gearing up for the Ravens' second preseason game against the Atlanta Falcons, and that'll be a game that, we'll get to see a lot more of these guys on display in terms of fighting for roster spots, positional battles, not so much the star power. Maybe we'll see a couple of starters here and there, but it's important to get these guys reps, but it's also important the practice reps. That's another big important part of this part of the offseason, is getting guys up to speed together, because, of course, you don't have Lamar Jackson playing a full 60-minute preseason game, right? That's not how these things go. So today we're going to be talking about what happened in practice recently, especially Lamar Jackson showing his passion off these past two practices in multiple different ways. So we'll talk about that. Lamar is a leader in the first part of the show, what's been going on with him. And then we'll get into potentially the Ravens being linked to some star pass rusher help and kind of the rumors that have been swirling around guys like Haason Reddick and Matt Judon. There have been obviously some calls for the Ravens to go out there and add another pass rusher, get some veteran help, and we'll talk about the possibility of those guys in the second part of the show. And then we'll get into some underrated key players stepping up in training camp practices. We'll talk about the preseason game a little bit more as well. So a jam-packed episode here today. Again, really appreciate the support. Let's get into it here. Lamar Jackson been showing off his passion at practice. We talked about this on yesterday's show, at least the first part of it. We have some new information. But the first part of it being Lamar ended up, had a great practice on Sunday in terms of his deep ball, was slinging the ball around. Isaiah Likely and him had a great connection. He was throwing the ball to Zay Flowers. That's typical, right? Mark Andrews. But there were a couple of plays where Lamar hit Nelson Aguilar, and those balls were dropped. There were some drop issues there, and Lamar Jackson ended up, slamming his helmet, expressing signs of frustration, showing that passion. And I call it passion for Lamar because Lamar wants to be great and Lamar wants to win, right? Obviously, everybody expresses that in a different way, right? Their passion. And for Lamar, we have seen this. This is not just me saying, oh, well, this is what I think is going on here. This is the first time we've seen something like this. It's not. Lamar does get visibly frustrated on the field. We've seen him punt the ball in games, throw his helmet, do this different stuff. And I think sometimes people do take that as, oh, why is he acting so immature? Why is he, why does he not have control over his emotions? This, that, and the other. I don't personally take it that way. I personally take it as a guy that wants to win, wants to compete. And it's not him trying to show up his teammates, right? There have been a couple of plays where, especially in the Greg Roman offense, and I hate to bring this back up because I know for a lot of people, they don't want to relive it, myself included. But when that play clock in the Greg Roman offense was going 3, 2, 1, 0, and the play clock expired, there was a violation. Lamar got visibly frustrated, slamming the ball down. He would, have a passionate exchange with an offensive lineman. Stuff like that would happen. And that to me is not him showing up his teammates. That to me is him trying to display his passion, show his leadership, and get on his guys, right? As a leader, you have to get on your guys. That's a thing. You can't just be all rosy all the time and there are different leadership styles that work, right? I'm not saying you have to get on your guys 24/7, and Lamar certainly doesn't, but we know that at the end of the day, Lamar wants to win a Super Bowl, and a main motivating factor for him is winning it for his teammates, winning it for the city of Baltimore. Obviously, it means a lot to him personally as well. I'm not trying to downplay that fact, but the passion we see, and I guess we saw on Sunday for Lamar, and expressing frustration with Nelson Aguilar. We know those two guys, they're both vets. Nelson more so than Lamar, but Lamar's in year 7 now, which is still absolutely unbelievably crazy to say. But those guys know that this can be a prime opportunity to get a Super Bowl here, and I feel like the Ravens understand that with the roster they have, they can still compete at the highest level. And so you want to get that down now, though. And that's the thing, where get the drops out now, get the miscommunications out now, get all of that out now. Don't have it happen in, a game that matters in December, or obviously the playoffs come January, and hopefully for the Ravens in February. But there was also another display, and this is a different display of passion for Lamar Jackson here, where he ended up, this involved the officials. He wasn't screaming at the officials, right? We're not talking about that. That did not happen. But there was a situation where Lamar Jackson was unhappy with some calls, in particular a missed call in the end zone. Jonas Schaefer putting this out here, so shout out to Jonas. But Lamar was unhappy with a missed call in the end zone, and Lamar walked up to the officials with an iPad and walked them through the play, showed them what he saw on that play, and presented his case. Now, again, this was after he was done with his reps. This was when the third string offense was out there working. Apparently, he got some good laughs off of that. But that is another display of passion, where it's like he wants to understand why certain things have not been called, what goes into that process, and just figuring things out now. What can he do? What can't he do? What will draw a flag? What won't draw a flag? And Lamar he's a smart guy. He's a smart player. He's someone that wants to go out there and perform at the highest level, and also take advantage of every single loophole or whatever he can. And so if he's going over there and asking officials, hey, this is what I saw, what went on here? Like, what's going on? That's something that I think, he's not going to go over with he's not going to pull the Patrick Beverley, right? And if you saw him go over to the officials when he was a member of the Lakers with the camera, right, after LeBron got fouled, got hit on the arm, Patrick Beverley went over with the camera, showed the officials in the NBA. He's not going to do that, right? But in practice, it's no harm, no foul. And it does show that he's trying to figure out what is going on. What's figuring out? It was, and more specifically, a throw to Isaiah Likely, which was broken up by Marcus Williams in the end zone. He pulled up the play and again went to the officials and was just trying to figure out what was happening there. So Lamar's a passionate guy. A lot of people in Baltimore love that about him. I know I love that about him, and just the energy and the passion that he shows. And, while he can be emotional on the field, I think that shows leadership. And I think that shows, guys want to follow guys like that for the most part, right? Like, obviously Lamar doesn't get over the top with it, in my opinion. But, if a guy shows passion like that, and I'm not even talking about like the iPad thing, I'm talking about like, he gets frustrated in moments where he should be frustrated, and, he's getting on guys and saying, hey, come on, let's go. Because it's not him just like singling out a guy, just berating them. It's him getting on him and being passionate about it and saying, hey, we got this. Come on, let's go. Like, he shows belief. That's different from just anger, right? There's a difference between anger in those moments and passion in those moments. And I think some people just automatically assume, oh, Lamar's angry again. He doesn't have control over his emotions, like I talked about earlier. That, to me, is not the case. You want passion out of your leaders. And we know Lamar is certainly a leader on this team. Roquan Smith obviously gets all the hype for the leadership, the vocalness, the pregame speeches, and rightfully so, right? It's not anything about Roquan here, but he's the guy who is like the poster child for that. He's the guy that's known for that. Lamar does it in his own way, right? Lamar does it in his own way, and that's completely okay, because you want your quarterback to be a leader. You want your quarterback to be passionate. Lamar Jackson is certainly all of those things, both on and off the field. So I think that it's great he's showing it. He's showing it on the field during games, showing it during practice, getting on his guys, and just getting his team together. That's what it should be. And I am excited to see it for Lamar during the season. Coming up in the second part of the show, we'll talk about the Ravens and this edge rusher, well, multiple actually, edge rusher rumors. Haason Reddick, Matt Judon, could either of them be coming to Baltimore? Stay tuned. We'll talk about that next year on Locked On Ravens. First of the show is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether in the speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has it covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. The parts needed, the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items always, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. We're back, our second segment of Locked On Ravens here on Taco Tuesday. Kevin Oestreicher here with you, of course. Thank you again for tuning in today with us and making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every day. Be sure to make Locked On NFL your second listen of the day. I host that show over on Mondays. If you're just an NFL fan in general, you want the big NFL perspective, insight into the Ravens opponents. Again, on Mondays, I host that show. And yesterday, we talked a lot about the wide receiver situation. Brandon Ayuk, is he going to Pittsburgh? We talked about CeeDee Lamb in that situation. We talked about Caleb Williams and his debut. So be sure to check out Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's get into these rumors, I guess we'll call them, where we got some movement on the Haason Reddick situation, which I don't think many people expected after he got traded once. He's asking to be traded again. The Eagles traded him to the Jets in March, I believe it was, sometime this offseason for a third-round pick that could become a second-round pick. Reddick was obviously, he wanted a new contract. There were some, negotiations that happened. There wasn't a new deal agreed upon before the trade. There was an assumption that, Reddick would either play on the deal or there'd be something worked out. Obviously, it did not work in either party's favor, and Haason Reddick has asked to be traded again. Then the Jets came out, and Joe Douglas, former Raven, the GM over there in New York, saying that, yeah, that's not happening. He's not going anywhere. But of course, those situations it's not as black and white as the statements put out. Obviously, there are multiple ways that this could go, but it does beg the question here because the Ravens, when you talk about their pass rusher room, I know a lot of people, myself included here, think that they could definitely use an upgrade at that position. Now, there was also a report about Matthew Judon, who again is a member of the Patriots, former Raven. And there have been rumblings about his contract situation. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN reporting that multiple teams have inquired about trading for Matt Judon amid the contract stalemate. Judon and New England have been unable to agree to an extension or just a reworked deal in general. And how the Matt Judon deal would work is his cap hit for New England is about it's actually $14 million for New England. But in a trade, the base salary is what's coming over, and that's $6.5 million. That's extremely affordable for the Ravens. And when you think about affordable here, look, Haason Reddick is an incredible player, right? He's a guy that would instantly help this Ravens pass rush, instantly become the best pass rusher on this team. But how realistic is it that the Ravens can match his contract demands with their situation right now, that they would extend him to the money number that he wants, and that the compensation would be what they would want to give up for a guy? It depends what the compensation would be. It feels like Matthew Judon would be the much more realistic option considering the base salary that would be coming over, obviously the history with Baltimore. And I think for him, it would be a perfect fit for both player and team. That's where I would expect the Ravens to go if we were talking about Haason Reddick versus Matt Judon. I think that the Ravens would go more for Matt Judon. That's not saying that Haason Reddick wouldn't instantly help the team again, but again, for what the Ravens have right now, we've talked about the salary cap constraints and the money constraints that they have right now, and it's almost like the same conversation as a Brandon Ayuk, right? Where Ayuk would be awesome. He would help this team in so many different ways. but he wants 30 plus million per season. And the Ravens just don't have the ability to do that right now unless they pull some strings and make things work. Plus, I think the other thing you have to keep in mind with a deal, like a big money contract like that, like Haason Reddick, like Brandon Ayuk, or any of those conversations, that will eat into the cap for multiple years down the line here. And Eric DeCosta has a job of looking at this year's team and also teams 2 years down the line, 4 years down the line, 5 years down the line. Right now, he has to put that whole vision, multiple years, he has to put that vision on the table. And so if you sign Haason Reddick, Brandon Ayuk to 30 plus million per year deal, 25 million plus per year deal, that's going to eat into your cap. And then will that impact an extension for Kyle Hamilton? Will it impact an extension for Tyler Linderbaum, for Zay Flowers? Those are 3 guys that you cannot let leave the building if you're the Ravens. And I'm not saying that they will never be able to acquire a star player who's looking for that deal ever again. I'm not trying to say that, but you do have to keep in mind that with these guys, everybody's looking for an extension. Everybody's looking for money. And although some people do take team-friendly deals and rework contracts, and that is certainly a thing. I mean, we saw it with Ronnie Stanley this offseason. For these younger players that are looking for their either first big NFL contract, second big NFL contract, guys who have found the fountain of youth or have gotten better. Like Haason Reddick is a guy that we didn't really know where he fit, right? Bounced around a little bit before finding that home. It was great in Carolina, went to Philly, obviously. Like, it worked out for him at the end of the day. But he wants to get paid. But so will Kyle Hamilton. So will Tyler Linderbaum. So will Zay Flowers. Those are probably 3 $20+ million deals at the minimum. And you're talking Flowers will probably get more than that annually. Hamilton will probably get a little more than that annually based off of the market. So it depends. And it's about the capital as well, because there are always those situations. You want to go way back, and we talked about Julio Jones forever on this show. The conversations we had about him, about DeAndre Hopkins, some of these star wide receivers, which I was all for, by the way. But the Ravens' philosophy is they love their draft picks. And while they will give them up and move on from them if the price is right, if the fit is right, it has to be the perfect fit. Because not only are you giving up draft capital or just assets in general, you're also having to give a guy a new contract. And the whole point of Judon and the unhappiness there is he doesn't want to play on that 6.5, right? He doesn't want to play with that contract he has now. He wants a new one. I think Judon has one more good deal left, but I don't think it's going to be what Haason Reddick wants. I think that if the Ravens want Matthew Judon, I don't think the draft compensation is going to be as big. I don't even think Reddick gets traded here. I think that something ends up happening and the two are able to agree on some level of a deal. But Judon, I can seriously see that happening, whether it be right before the season or at the trade deadline, because this is a free agent year for Matt Judon. I think we can all assume the Patriots are not necessarily going anywhere this season with the team that they have. And that's no shade. It is what it is. So if you're the Patriots, it's kind of the conversation we had with Derrick Henry last season with Tennessee. It's like, well, are you going to let him leave for nothing? Or are you going to get an asset to help your team in the future? With Derrick Henry, at least, even though I didn't agree with it, you could at least argue with the fact that, Henry's a lifelong Titan and that legacy, it looked poor to trade him. There was a whole A.J. Brown controversy, who wasn't even as legendary as a Titan as Derrick Henry was. But, that kind of left a sour taste in fans' mouths. With Judon, there's none of that. He spent the first couple of years of his career with the Ravens. I mean, there's no, Judon's a Patriots lifer, he's a New England legend. Like, there's none of that with him. If I'm the Patriots, it'd be a major mistake to not move off of Matt Judon, whether it's before the season or the trade deadline. You're not helping your team that way. It doesn't feel like Judon's going to go back there, right? It feels like with this whole thing, maybe it happens. I'm not saying it's completely ruled out, but my prediction now is that he probably leaves and goes elsewhere, and maybe this is a situation where both teams are trying to drive up or down the price a little bit and meet in the middle. But if Judon has no future there in New England, if he's not staying, the Patriots could probably get like maybe a 4th rounder for him, 5th rounder for him. And that's better than nothing. It's better than watching him leave for nothing. So The Ravens, we know their pass rushing situation right now. Kyle Van Noy is their top guy. Dafe always slotting in where Jadeveon Clowney was, is that number 2. But then it gets very dire after that. David Ojabo has to stay healthy and contribute. Tavius Robinson has to take a step forward. Adisa Isaac, right? Is he going to be a guy that factors in? Joe Evans looked good in that first preseason game. Is he going to be a factor? Outside of Van Noy and the hopeful pure breakout of David Ojabo and Dafe Owe, hopefully both those guys can do something. It's tough because you can't even rely on Ojabo, right? You can't put all the eggs in that basket. Dafe Owe has at least shown you some stuff, and he's been able to stay on the field, and I think he's gotten better every season. I know the sophomore slump was a thing, and he had a tough second season, but I thought he rebounded well last year. With Ojabo, he's missed almost 2 full years and 2 seasons, and that's tough where you want to believe in the talent, but it's hard to put your eggs in that basket. You know, you have to be able to see it first to believe it with him, where I think he has all the talent in the world. We've seen that, but the health factor is a real one. So I think that the Ravens, even if it's not a Reddick or a Judon type player, to go out there and sign a vet for that room, I think would do them a lot of good, or just add a vet. Stability, I think it'd help them a lot. We're coming up with the final part of the show. We're talking about some more practice notes from Monday, talking about some players who are stepping up, guys that are making a name for themselves, and guys that are fighting for roster spots. Stay tuned. We've got a lot to get to here on the show. First, this show is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools that find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And for me, I've had a ton of great experiences over on LinkedIn, whether it's finding jobs, networking, connecting. LinkedIn has everything over there for you. And LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Plus, 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We are back. Locked on Ravens. Tuesday, our final segment here of the show. Kevin Oestreicher still here with you. I didn't go anywhere, and we're not going anywhere here on Locked on Ravens. If you did miss it, yesterday did mark my 5-year anniversary hosting the show. Back in August of 2019, August 12th to be exact, 2019 started this journey, and the congratulatory messages I got, the support, the outpouring I got yesterday, whether it be in the YouTube comments, social media, text, whatever it may be, it was really cool. It was awesome to see that the love was great. So again, as I've said before, I appreciate this community so much, you know, and the communities we've built up, whether the audio community, we started off there. If you've been here with me in the audio form of this show from the beginning, really appreciate that. If you found us along the way, thank you for tuning in. If you're in video form on YouTube, started that community up a couple years after audio form. If you've been along for that ride, really appreciate you. Subtext community, social media community, it's all been incredible here. And this is episode 1,312 consecutively for me. I've never missed a weekday episode ever in my 5 years of doing this. That includes holidays and every other big event, man. It's been incredible. So just wanted to thank everybody for the support, because it did mean a lot to me, and the support always means a lot to me. And be sure to, again, if you're new to the channel, hit that like button, subscribe button on YouTube, hit that follow button, subscribe in audio form as well. We bring you 5 days a week of Ravens content, Monday through Friday. Plus, if you have any friends or family members who are Ravens fans, or maybe even not Ravens fans, and they want Ravens updates, Ravens coverage daily, we have you covered, and of course them covered this year and every year on Locked on Ravens. But let's get into some practice updates now. Let's talk with the injury. Well, let's talk injuries first. We'll get into the other practice updates after this. TJ Tampa was activated from the PUP list. He made his practice debut, actually, for the Ravens yesterday, so that was a great sign. Obviously, they're going to probably take it a little slow with him, ramp things up. Good to see him back on the field. Rashad Bateman also returned to practice. I know John Harbaugh had said that he was close. And actually, about Tampa, I think he said he wasn't even – Harbaugh didn't really think he'd be ready this week. But Tampa was back, and then Bateman, who Harbaugh said was close, ended up coming back. But there is a little asterisk here by Rashad Bateman's name, because his day ended up being short. He was half speed in the wide receiver drills, and he didn't look right after his lone one-on-one rep. He took the pads off later. So again, just more frustration. John Harbaugh was asked about it after practice by the media, and he got extremely frustrated. He said that, do we really have to do this? He ended up saying he'd be good, but I think it's just that there's a level of frustration with Rashad Bateman at every level right now. I think Bateman is frustrated. I think he's frustrated he can't stay on the field right now, and he's trying to ramp up, trying to get chemistry with Lamar, and he can't stay healthy right now. I think there's frustration from the coaching staff about man, we're giving these resources, we believe in him. And it's not a thing about, Bateman is making them frustrated. It's more frustration of man, we know this guy can be a guy for us, but he's not out there on the field. And I think that's frustrating for sure. And obviously the fan base frustration is certainly continuing to creep up with the whole situation with him not being able to stay on the field. So maybe this is related to the midsection injury, might be a new thing as well. If it's a new thing, and again, I don't know, because Harbaugh didn't comment on it, so we don't know what the situation is. But he said that it's just something he doesn't want to get into, but it's either 2 injuries in 3 weeks, 2 of which are the same, or 3 in 3 weeks, which, again, it's 3 different things. So he keeps leaving practice, and hopefully he can get back on the field. But that's been the biggest thing, right? The Ravens took a leap of faith by trusting him in that number 2 role, not bringing in guys to compete with him, more so to complement him. So hopefully it's going to be hopefully he's going to be able to get back on the field. But of course we have to see it first to believe it with Rashad. We also got some updates. Ardarius Washington apparently just continuing to ball out in practice. Undrafted secondary member Bump Cooper, who I thought he had a decent game in the preseason opener against Philly. He also is continuing to stack days. But Ardarius Washington seemed to be the big story of the day for the Ravens defensively. Lamar Jackson had a silky smooth throw to Mark Andrews. He was rolling out of the pocket, just kind of, just jogging a little bit, right? Just surveying the field. He tossed it, silky smooth pass to Mark Andrews. Andrews does his typical one-hand tip drill to himself. He loves doing that. So that Lamar-Mark Andrews connection is not going anywhere. Not going anywhere. Both those guys have to stay healthy on the field as well. Harbaugh also gave an update on Kyle Hamilton, said that it's a sprain for him. Good news for Baltimore. Looks like they again dodged a major catastrophic thing there, as they did with Nate Wiggins, as they've done with a couple other guys as well. So that was another piece of big news for the Ravens, because we know how important Kyle Hamilton is to this defense. Other guys who were not at practice: Nate Wiggins, Russell Gage, Arthur Millette, Rasheen Ali, Sanusi Kane, Christian Matthew, Chris Board, Quincy Roche, and Tyler Linderbaum. So again, the timelines are different. John Harbaugh's doing his best he can, at least in some aspects of the injury reports, and he said that Linderbaum would be back last week. He was not back last week. We are now into Tuesday. Maybe he returns today. But they're going to be cautious with their guys, as they should, right? They don't need to risk an injury. We've talked about that a ton on this show. So I think that, it's good to see a lot of these younger guys getting opportunities. Obviously, on the offensive line, there are a lot of question marks, and you're trying to figure out things as well. But, the big takeaways here are the Ravens do have talent. It's a lot of young talent. They have vets too, don't get me wrong. But the Ravens are going to have to rely a bunch on younger players this season. And so obviously you want your players out there. You want your stars out there. You want guys getting chemistry with one another. But in my opinion, I think that getting these young guys as many reps as they can to get ready for game action, that is also really, really important. So Ravens, again, will have their second preseason game against the Atlanta Falcons coming up this weekend. And we, of course, will have you covered here on Locked On Ravens for all of that. But first, we're going to go through this entire week of shows. Of course, Monday through Friday on Locked On Ravens, we have some guests lined up for the rest of the week, or at least parts of the rest of the week here. So be sure to stay tuned for all of that. That's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Really appreciate you tuning in and for all the support. Again, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe button on YouTube, hit that follow button, subscribe in audio form, tell a friend, tell a family member. If they want Ravens coverage, they can find it right here on Locked On Ravens. Stay tuned. We're going to be right back here tomorrow talking more Ravens, of course, and I'll see you right back in tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.